Hey, what's up? DFS Rico coming at you with my picks and insight for this Call of Duty 4-game slate on Friday, April 24th. Before I get started, if you can subscribe, I really appreciate it. If you like, appreciate that too. Then at the end of the video, if you want to comment, ask any questions, I'll gladly get back to any of you guys. And yeah, pretty much it. All right, so getting started, I'm going to run over to the Vegas odds and just let you know what I'm thinking from what I see, and then we'll come through and go through the picks and stuff like that. So getting started, you got your favorites. You got Atlanta FaZe heavily favorited over London Royal Ravens. They're the biggest favorites on the slate. And then you got Seattle Surge and a close one with LA Guerrillas. And then you got Dallas Empire and a slight favorites for Dallas Empire over Optic Gaming. And then Chicago Huntsmen, the second biggest favorites on the slate over New York Subliners. But one thing that I have noticed with Call of Duty DraftKings is you're going to want to pick, that's different from other games, is like you're going to want to pick the games that are going to be close compared to the ones where there are teams that are heavily favorited. As far as like cash, in my opinion, and GPPs, if you're going to want to have leverage, you're going to want to maybe play like the bigger favorites and hope that the bad team makes like a 4-game series or a 5-game series. Because the more games you get, the more stats your players will get, which kills is practically like the main goal. More kills, more opportunity to get kills, the better for you. So in that case, like in cash, my opinion, you're going to want to not play Atlanta FaZe or Chicago Huntsmen, any of those games, because Vegas has them playing less than 4 games for the most part. Some of them even 3 games. So in Call of Duty, you're going to want the more opportunity to get more points. Since you're not getting any bonuses for the team for playing less games, kind of like on League of Legends where you get like the 20-point bonus if your players don't play a game out of the match. You're not getting that in Call of Duty. So if your team 3-0s them, you're losing out on 2 games for opportunity to get more points. What I'm thinking is whether it's the losing team or the winning team, you're going to want to stack, like game stacking will work on this. Because let's say Guerrillas go 5 games versus Seattle Surge. That's going to benefit you. You can only play 5 people from 1 game. So like one thing you can do is maybe stack the Guerrillas and Surge and then pick one of the heavy favorites on the team slot that is going to win. That's practically guaranteed to win, which is like FaZe or Huntsman. They're not guaranteed, obviously. No one's guaranteed, but they're the ones where you're going to get those extra points because they are the bigger favorited teams. So you can do stuff like that, but I think in GPPs where you're going to want to be different is, like I said, maybe you play guys like Atlanta FaZe and Chicago Huntsmen and hope that New York or London actually takes them to a 4-game or 5-game series. As of right now, Vegas has them playing 3 games, so that doesn't benefit you much. So like in cash, I would recommend playing LA Guerrillas, Seattle Surge, Optic Gaming, or Dallas Empire. Game stacking, like I said, will work. I believe in this as long as it goes your way. You know, what we predict is like 4 or 5 games. If for some reason they get blown out and it ends up being a 3-0 sweep, that already gives you an advantage if you're playing even like if you're playing teams like Chicago Huntsmen or Atlanta FaZe. It gives you a benefit because they are the better teams. Let's say all these games went to 3-0s. Atlanta wins, Surge wins, Dallas Empire, and Chicago Huntsmen. Let's say they all got swept. Realistically, Atlanta FaZe will have the best scores because they are the best team on the slate. But in this case, you're going to want to play the closer games. So this is going to be the first event, Friday. So just kind of get a feel for it. We'll kind of see how everybody plays it. But that's my early input on this is you're going to want to play the closer matches more than you want to play the bigger spreads. GPPs for leverage, I would recommend playing the team with the bigger spread just because what if it does go 5 games or 4 games? No one expects London to take Atlanta to 4 or 5 games, but what if they do? You never know. So yeah, just running back to it. Like I mentioned, you got your biggest favorites. Most expensive teams is FaZe, Huntsman, Dallas Empire, and Surge. They're all the favorites. Running over to the captain spot. We don't really need to go to the captain, but we can go to everyone's in a flex position. You're practically playing 1 captain, 4 flexes in the team, and you can only play 5 players from 1 game. So you will have to be different somewhere. That's where the leverage will come, I guess. You can play a different player. in those slots. I would recommend in the captain spot playing a player that is going to be like higher chance of playing 4 or 5 games. You wouldn't want your captain spot to be someone from specifically like, let's say, Simp or Celium for Atlanta. Because let's say they sweep, you're just missing out on 2 games of bonus points. You would ideally want someone who's going to be in a closer matchup. And obviously you got the best players up top. I'll just kind of run through the captain spots since they're all going to be around the same anyways. But like, obviously you're going to have your most expensive players like Octane, Simp, Celium for Atlanta, all the favorited players. Wooskin is the most expensive, I think, non-favorited player, which is off of London. He is a solid player. He's not even one of the best players in the world, which is kind of crazy. Envoy for Chicago has been looking really good this season. Priesta for Atlanta. You'll see a lot of the Atlanta guys up here because they're just stacked from every position. ABZ is a solid submachine gunner. Most teams run like a couple, like they run 3 guys with submachine guns, 2 guys with assault rifles, or 4 guys with submachine guns. Everyone kind of has an identity for the most part, which you'll see if you actually watch the streams. You'll end up learning who the assault rifle players are and who the submachine gun guys are. Not to say they don't each use those guns, but for the most part, you'll see guys like Priesta or Envoy running with a submachine gun because that's their thing. They're usually the guys rushing into the objective, dying more, but getting more kills as well. You'll notice that. Dashi for OG LA for Optic Gaming is looking solid. I really like Scump at 13.5k. His regular price is 9k. I think he's super underpriced. In my opinion, he's one of the top 5 players in the world. Had a bad showing last tournament. That's probably why he got bumped down, but I think he's really good. I mean, some of the best players, you got Octane. Simp is solid. Celium won the MVP for the weekend, the event that Atlanta won, the recent event, like a couple of events ago. I really like Envoy's been performing solid for Chicago, but like I mentioned, Scump is a bit too underpriced for me, in my opinion. Gunless for Chicago. Like, we don't really have too many stats on these guys, and I feel like this game is really, like, volatile. Like, you never know who's going to really show up. You have some of your best players in the world, but like I mentioned, Scump had a bad weekend last weekend, and that's not usually him, so hopefully he bounces back right now. Clayster for Dallas is solid. Quavo for Optic Gaming. But that's really it. I mean, you're going to have your price guys for your favorites, and you got your underpriced guys for the underdogs, which, like I mentioned, like going like with a, like even stacking Dallas versus OGLA would be a good idea. And then, like I mentioned, in the team spot, putting someone like who's more favorited to win, like Chicago or Atlanta. They're the heavily favored guys. You put them in the captain spot, practically going to guarantee you the victory. And then you game stack the other 5 players. It's going to honestly come down to who shows up that day. You, like I mentioned, you have your best players in the world, but sometimes they don't show up. So it's going to be really like you learn who the submachine gun guys and the assault rifle guys, and maybe you want to play more submachine gun guys. That might be a strategy that ends up working out because they are going to be the ones getting most bomb plants, bomb diffuses, capturing the hills, more kills, more deaths. So all that good stuff, which you'll eventually learn by just watching. But that's really my thought process as it right now. Once we start getting more stats on these guys, it'll be a lot easier to see who's really performing more consistently. But like I mentioned, LAG versus Seattle, OGLA and Dallas, and I like them in cash, and then finding a way to get like Atlanta or Chicago in GPPs, pairing them up. Maybe even you can game stack them, or even pairing them up like to be different. You would swap them around because I feel like a lot of guys will be game stacking like LA Gorillas and Seattle. Let's say you pick, and in that lineup you're going to have the losing team. You obviously want the winning team, which is going to perform better. The team that wins 3-2 will usually perform better than the team that goes 2-3. So let's say you stack Seattle and Dallas because they are in the closer matchups and they both win. You're going to be better off playing them than if you just game stack Seattle and Los Angeles Gorillas. So that's just stuff you got to look at. I've been trying out some lineups with like Huntsman and Seattle, because I do believe Huntsman and Seattle wins, and let's say Chicago does end up going 5 games. It's a big if, but let's say they do. You're going to be in a super solid spot because everyone else is going to just be playing game stacks. So that's some ways you could differentiate yourself, like cross-stacking games instead of just game stacking. But you got to get really lucky at that point, you know. Got to get a lot going your way. But that's how you win GPPs. You're not going to win by following the field. It's just not how it's going to work. Unless you want to split that pot, but nobody likes to do that, right? But that's really it. Not going to really run through any players specifically yet because we don't have too many stats on them yet. But like I mentioned some of the best players in the world with Octane, Simp. Our cities is nice for Chicago. I really like Envoy. He's kind of a rookie, but he's been playing super solid. Priesta's a beast. ABZ. A lot of these Atlanta guys are obviously really good. If you're going to be playing guys from, like, let's say Seattle, obviously you want Octane in there. Apathy's a beast. It's really the two main guys I really like from Seattle. Dallas and OGLA. I mean, Dashy's the highest price guy in this matchup, and they're the underdogs, which is crazy. It just shows you how good they can be. Clayster, solid for Dallas. Just look at the pricier guys usually is what I'm looking at, other than with Chicago. I mean, Scump is the third highest guy, and I do really like him. Gunless is solid. Formal, solid as well. I do believe Atlanta's going to win this event, though. If that goes for anything. It'll be interesting when they play, like, if Atlanta ends up playing Chicago Huntsmen next round, because I think if they win, they both play each other. That'll be interesting to see, because that'll probably be a 5-game series. But, yeah, that's really it. Just wanted to give my insight on the games and how the stacking is going to work, or how I'm going to be running it down the first couple matches until we get some stats on these guys. But that's really it. That's my thought process. I really appreciate you guys watching. Subscribe, like, ask any questions. I'll gladly answer. Thank you. Appreciate you guys.